Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
Hey, I'm Sam Harmon, and I have built the Bathhouse from the movie Spirited Away. Spirited Away is one of a set of beloved movies by Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli. It's a movie that's 25 years old, and yet I've noticed today that all the teenagers and kids walking around still know it, still love the iconic characters, just like the adults do. So most people, when they think of Spirited Away, think of all the characters. They think of No Face or Chihiro, all these wonderful people. I've always loved this Bathhouse. I've always loved this place where all the action takes place. It happens inside, it happens outside in this building that's essentially a city. And I wanted to celebrate that in its architectural form. Here we have this big city, this big build. I've only ever seen it in Lego in small-ish builds, beautiful smallish builds. And I wanted to do it sort of that epic.
Very large scale here. How tall is this?
Exactly. It's basically as tall as I am.
Okay.
It's about 6 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that the intention from the beginning, or did it just kind of expand out?
The beginning was I wanted to build it 4 base plates wide and about 10 feet tall. Okay. And I quickly was told, no, too much. And I'm so glad, because I'd never moved a build of this size. I'm pretty new to Lego, and this was just way more than I had ever done. So
that's what makes this even more impressive. Is this is your first show actually displaying, right? First Lego show displaying. Yeah, and so you just went right in for it.
Well, the minute I got into Lego, I said, what's the thing? I've always loved this movie. What would be iconic that I want to build? And I thought this thing would make me feel like I'd done something. That thing you have when you're a kid, when you see the Lego catalog and you want to build the big thing. I wanted to do that, but not that. I want to do my own version of that. I was like, I'll do this big thing. Anyway, so this is a building, when you look at the movie, that doesn't have a blueprint. And it was clear that the illustrators took a lot of license scene to scene with, oh, well, this scene needs this, or this scene needs that, so it would change dramatically. So the details would change dramatically. I had this idea that the Bathhouse was this iconic thing, 100% just one thing, and it was not. So I had to sort of decide, what am I going to do? What's going to tell the most universal story to the most people? And what can help tell the story of the characters, even though the characters aren't here? Mm-hmm. And that made it even harder, because the bridge in the front, this bridge in the front, is one of the more iconic things. There's a bunch of scenes that happen here. And I wasn't going to be able to show that, because if I showed that, you wouldn't be able to see the whole front of the building. So I have this cutaway. You walk in, the characters all ferry into this building, and all the adventures take place. Anyway.
As you keep moving up here then, so what is this section kind of represent?
So really what you see 3 major sections. The low section is a section you barely see in the movie. Okay. It is sort of a section where the industry happens, and the spirits who work there live. As you move up, this is sort of the area where there's a big, grand, beautiful bathhouse inside. It's all one big open space with all these sort of hallways that walk around, and you can enjoy the various offerings that this bathhouse has. And I don't know what all that is, but you know how it is. And then as you move up, you get to this palace up here, which is the head spirit who runs this bathhouse, Yubaba. This is where she lives. This is where her baby lives. And later on, we'll go walk around the back. It's the most ornate part, because that's where she lives and where she put all the money, very clearly. What's interesting about it is it's all a facade. There's a character early in the movie, the father of the hero, looks at one of the buildings and goes, oh, it's all fake. It's all a scene. It's all meant to look old. It's all built to look old, but it's not necessarily. So it's this weird magical building that shifts and is funky. As you go around, you'll see that they only even painted the front, right? They left it only for show in the part where the spirits who come to visit see. And in the back, it's just all industrial, full of pipes and this big smokestack billowing out smoke that runs the boiler. One of the iconic characters is Kumaji, the boiler man, who has all the little soot sprites that help him. He has a big boiler down in this door. And early in the movie, our hero, when she's distraught and her parents have been turned into pigs, and she's trying to figure out how to save them, runs down this staircase, sheer drop-offs all the way down, and asks for a job from Kumaji, the boiler man, which is how she begins the journey in this bathhouse. So I wanted to make sure I got this scene in. around the back, we'll show you the other iconic scene that we have.
One thing I love about this, and you explained with how they only painted, a section of it, you then get that contrast. And so it's the gray with these incredible colors out front here. And these are colors you don't see super often with Lego builds. So take us through some of what these different colors are and kind of how you were able to acquire so many elements.
Okay. So the previous builds of people who have built this I told you about usually use red. Okay. Because it's the color lands somewhere between coral and red when you look at it. I think it turns more towards coral. And I think when most of the people built this build, coral wasn't really around as a Lego. I went this way because I noticed that in the build, the red details were very distinctly different than the walls. So I really wanted those red details to pop. So I went with the coral. I love coral, and I wanted a chance to sort of give it its day.
It's an incredible color. I mean, it stands out so nicely when you walk into the convention hall. This build just catches your attention.
From anywhere in the hall, you can see this thing. And it's oh, by the way, a side effect, it's really fun to be able to see a build from 80 feet away. You look at it in your little room and you see it for what it is, but now at 80 feet away. It also was interesting to watch as I built and I surrounded it with the browns and the sand green, how the coral got less electric, how it just toned itself down to a point where it was more bearable. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
How was I able to get it? I just went looking for it, Bricklink. A lot of pieces have come out recently from Lego just in March, but that was after I was through the base of building most of the coral, so I didn't get to rely on that. So it's all 1x6s and 1x2s, and 6x10 plates turn on their side.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, it's fantastic. And like you were saying earlier, you kind of broke it up with some of that more worn look. And so it's not just kind of the flat look around the whole thing. And it creates such a nice kind of character to the building.
Yeah. And because of that quote where he says that thing about, oh, it's all a facade and meant to look old, I knew I wanted to get that look. But there was also, this build was real because I'm new to Lego. I wanted a build that would challenge me and force me to learn new things, to force me to intuit, to get to the point where I could just intuit Lego math, where when I turned from building studs up to building studs out to building studs on the sides, I could do that without thinking. Because normally it just takes a lot of work and you get tired and burnt out, right? So I built up to here the first time and thought I was doing great, and all of a sudden things weren't lining up. The ones that were going this way, there was no way to make it work with the things going this way and whatnot. So I took it all back down, I made myself some new rules, and I figured it out. And now, because of that, it's in my head. It just happens, which is really exciting. It's fun that a build like this can do that. Yeah. On that theme, I've realized it only this week that building something that someone else's design doesn't let you get off easy. If I was building my own, I'm going to build a temple, right? I can be like, oh, I can't figure out how to do that roof. I'll build the roof differently. In this case, I had to make it look like that iconic thing so people walking by who love this property could appreciate that. So it forced me to get creative with mechanics that I'd never touched or ideas that I had never thought of to make that happen. The real case in point for that is the roof. The roof was a real challenge in that regard. But
no, you hit on a super important point there, which is that with Lego building, just like any skill, the more you do it, kind of the more you improve. And I think a lot of people, the public, will walk into these conventions and see these incredible creations and be like, oh, I could never do that. Like, that's so insane. And there are obviously tons of really talented builders here, but those builders, a lot of them have spent a long time building and really kind of honing the craft. And like you said, experimenting with different types of building and figuring those things out. And so it can be kind of overwhelming at first, but it's definitely something that you can improve on and you improve as you go.
Yeah, my career is as a painter, a fine art painter, and people have always said, "Oh, I can't even draw a stick figure," right? And it's just work. I was a horrible drawer painter when I started. I just loved it, so I just worked at it. That's how you develop. The same thing with Lego.
Yeah, which I think is fantastic, and you can see that improvement. Before we go to the other side, I wanted to mention the tree as well here. So you've got some different unique elements throughout this. Take us through kind of how this came together.
Okay, well, I have a secret to my real Lego dream, besides the bathhouse, is to build big trees. It's hard, I think, for people to build big trees with thin enough trunks to be real, with a big enough canopy. Oftentimes we shrink the canopy or we enlarge the trunk. I'm trying to get there where I bridge the gap, and I think it's hard. The pieces might not exist, but I'm working on it. So this is my biggest experiment to date. Also, I love dark brown. This was a dark brown tree, and there's less elements in dark brown. The real challenge here is that this is a very curvy tree, and I would like it to have been more curvy. And so every time I would put these curves in, I had the tree just drooping over and over as I put the weight on. And I had to let go of some of that curve. In terms of special pieces, I mean, there is a weird technique I don't know if it's a plate. I'm not sure what it is. It's its core for the first half. And then I just start building up. But I do have an axle threaded up most of the way through it, sort of shifting. So the axles would shift as I go up. And then I'd clad it with things. In terms of special pieces, I mean, the hair for the burls.
I love the hair elements throughout it. Yeah, that definitely catches your attention there.
I've always been bummed that 2x3 plates in dark brown are hard to find, but then I realized that these little ones that cut out are available, so I bought 100 of those so that I could clad the thing with that because it was just not the plates I needed, and those things let me do it. But hopefully in the future, I'll find even better ways to depict trees for you.
That's what you're saying, always improving, so that's fantastic.
I've had a fun time today where kids have been finding the Minecraft tridents here on that roof, and of course the AFOLs who find that are like, oh, it's like Ninjago City. It's it was real fun to have a chance to build every roof different because again, in the property, every roof is different. I remember the first day I was trying to work on it up higher towards the top. I noticed in the build, this roof was curved this way, and this one was curved this way, convex and concave. And I was shocked by that. Like, why is this thing like this? And that's why I really realized, oh, this whole thing is asymmetric. Nothing makes sense. Good luck to me, but we got there.
There you go. Well, we'll go around to the other side now and take a look at more of it.
Let's do it. As you come around the side, you have these dorms. These are where people live, where Chihiro stayed. And there's a lot of scenes of her out on the porch. This is this giant smokestack, which my favorite scene in the whole movie actually is the very first scene where Chihiro, our hero, sees it. She comes around the corner, she looks up, it's bright sunny day, and it's silent. The sun glistens off the windows, and she sees that smokestack going, and she goes, huh, that's weird. It's a strange, quiet scene. It just makes me happy. That's what that is. Anyway, the rest of this is just this whole industrial zone where stuff happens, right? Pipes and electricity and shut-off valves and everything you can imagine. The most important two things to talk about, the first one is here. There's a scene where Chihiro is trying to save Haku, thank you. And she struggles to get through the inside of the building, can't find her way there. So she crawls out this window, runs up over this. At this time, this pipe goes from here to here. She jumps on, it's all bent, and the attachments peel off, and she starts falling as she runs. And she runs and she runs and she runs, and she grabs the ladder at the last second. The thing falls down, and she looks down, is so freaked out. Bravely, our little girl climbs all the way up here. And in that scene, there is no garden, and this looks like a sheer wall where she's like up against this cliff face with water at the bottom. She climbs all the way up this bathhouse epically. This little teeny girl climbs into this bathroom and then proceeds to save the day up here in the top, which takes us to the top.
This part is just incredible. The detail you've got here, and then the gold elements, the contrast with the red, so nicely there. Looks amazing.
Thank you. This is all... in the movie, these are all these delicate, ornate wood engravings with lots of relief. And so I was trying to find a way to depict that. So that's what you're seeing in all these spots, is that it was really fun to build a beautiful pattern and put it over that kind of space. As a person who only built small builds, it was really satisfying to be like laying, 80 jumpers or something like that. It was so much fun.
And then that takes us to the very top as well, which I don't know if we've really touched too much on kind of the very top tower section. You've got lights in there, and then that wall of kind of the trans green and yellow pieces.
Yeah, and those are in the front as well, some of those trans yellow curves. I believe in the movie those curves are kind of like a weird louver door that opens and she flies out of it and then flies back in. This build really was fun in terms of like realizing how much fun it is to light up translucent bricks in different colors. You can see up in the tower, there's the yellow and orange checkerboard. You got that again up in the front. And I guess that speaks to my favorite part of the whole build, which is the roof. The roof was I got all the way up to the top, knowing I was going to get to the roof, but not sure if I could do it. This was like maybe 3 weeks ago this happened. And this was the hardest part of the whole thing. And I think it's my favorite technical part of the build, the thing I'm probably the proudest of. So there's a couple scenes in the movie where you have these red struts underneath, but you have this beautiful green curved roof. And then, of course, the roof curves this way, and it has these up curves. Like, how does Lego do this? I'm sure there are millions of great builders who could do that stuff, but I'm just a little guy trying to figure this out, right? So I'm proud to have figured that out. It's all the green stuff is loose. It's only tied into the red here at this edge. And it's the red studs that are attached to the rest of the build. So the whole green thing floats up top. which made transportation scary because if that delaminated, there's no way to get back into it and fix it. But we got here. It worked out.
Oh, very important. And what about on this side over here then? What is this section right here?
In the movie, there are no pictures of this side. There is one glance from this way that there's this weird little tea house here at that little bridge. And there's one other view from this side where it's like dark gray slanting rain and you can make out nothing. So I kind of had to work with that. But I got those major elements in, and that's what we have. So there are all these beautiful gardens. And I've had countless people come up to me this weekend saying, oh, well, the way that building is done and those gardens, all the buildings in Korea are like that, or all these buildings in Japan are like that. So I think it's just a traditional, beautiful garden space for the visitors of this bathhouse to go out and enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is just amazing here. So in terms of kind of getting this thing together and transportation, how does that work with different sections? I imagine this doesn't move all as one giant tower.
It does not. It does not. So it breaks at this line and this line. So there are these big pieces. I built wooden stretchers, and we would load them onto that. I'd screw blocks in around them so that they would stay put on those stretchers as we carried them. We wouldn't accidentally slide it off. And then the gardens all come off. The tree comes off. And so it's basically 6 pieces.
Yeah. And with we're at the end of the first public day at the show here. So what has been the reaction from the public as they've come up and seen this? It's obviously very colorful, very tall. What have been the people's reactions here?
It's been surprisingly fun. My career again was showing art in fine art galleries, and I've got a lot of, I was lucky enough to have a career in that regard. But this is a whole different, more satisfying beast to have teenagers come up, run up, maybe crying, taking selfies up against it. Like there's something that's just really fun about that. So there's been that kind of thing. It has been fun to see adults, kids, and teenagers all recognize it. I think I like even more the people who come up and don't recognize it, just love it for the color and the shape and the height. And then 10 minutes in go, wait a second, is that from that movie? And I said, you mean Spirited Away? Yeah. And then they spend another 10 minutes digesting all the details and thinking about it. I also, as a side note to that, it makes me think that I've really been enjoying the fact that, most of the time with Lego, we tell stories with minifigures and all these little fun builds and all that stuff's amazing, right? It's been fun to try to tell stories without those things. And to see
just a building, which is a very unique thing, yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of been one of my side goals, and I think it's pretty much working.
For sure. One other technique I wanted you to point out was kind of the fence kind of lattice technique almost here. So what are those elements there?
Sure. This side shows it off probably a little better. Those are the neckwear brackets that you put around a minifigure, you put it over their back, and then you can attach things to it. It's not my original design. I can't remember his name, Ralph Rungal uses that quite a bit. That guy's a genius. So you line up a grid, you put them, offset them, make a line, and then you turn it up and you back and forth. They're a little weak because they're kind of accordion fold, but once you compress them there, put this down, and you have a groove here and you have a groove on the sides, they'll stay in place nicely. And, obviously someone hit it today and knocked it out loose. So it's a bit of a fragile thing, but there's nothing else that creates that thin lattice at this scale. And it ended up being the perfect thing. So thank you, Ralph Longer.
There you go. Well, the whole build is absolutely amazing here. So thanks so much for all your work building this, bringing it out to the show, and thank you for taking the time to explain the build here and take us through this. I can't wait to see what you do in the future. If this is where you're starting at here, I think it'll be really amazing to see more of your stuff. So thank you.
That's kind of you to say. Thank you for taking a look at it, and I hope everyone enjoys it.